that vote is a confidence vote or not, whether that triggers an election or not, I'm telling Justin Trudeau and the Liberals right now, you're never going to count on us if you're going to take away the rights of workers. Never. Never going to happen.
You gotta love Jagmeet and his bluster, because he knows damn well
the Liberal government intervened in a labor dispute for the second time in 4 months, forcing union employees back to work and submitting them to binding arbitration. Jagmeet Singh has been writing checks with his mouth about taking down the government if they did this again. And now it's time to pay up.
Let's take a look.
Canada is a nation whose economy relies on trade, on getting goods to and from global markets. This morning, Canada's largest east and west coast ports sit silent. Donc, je suis ici aujourd'hui pour annoncer que nous apportons
I'm here today to announce that we're bringing a solution to the various labor disputes currently taking place in the ports of British Columbia and Quebec.
Nous nous retrouvons face
We have
à un
reached a
impasse
total
totale
impasse
dans les trois conflits.
in all three disputes.
Pour que des
For
négociations
negotiations
soient
to
couronnées de
succeed,
succès, les parties doivent y mettre
parties must
l'effort
make
nécessaire.
the necessary
À
efforts.
Montréal, entre
In Montreal,
le SCFP 375 et
Between
l'AEM,
QP
et au Port de
375
Québec,
and
entre
the
la
Maritime
Société
Employers
des
Association
Arrimeurs de
and in
Québec
the Port of Quebec,
et
between the Société des Arrimeurs de Québec and QP
2614,
2614,
les parties font
the
preuve d'un
parties
manque
are
d'urgence
showing an
alarmant.
alarming lack of
Et les
urgency.
négociations ne
Negotiations
progressent
are
pas vers
not
de nouveaux
progressing
accords.
towards new
In
agreements.
BC, between the BC MEA and ILWU 514, the parties are also showing an alarming lack of urgency and negotiations are not progressing towards a new deal. The collective bargaining process belongs to the parties alone, but the consequences impact the lives of working people and families across Canada. As Canada's Minister of Labour, it is my duty and responsibility to secure industrial peace in the national interest of all Canadians and to promote conditions favorable to the settlement of the parties' disputes. So today, I have invoked my authorities under the Canada Labour Code. Under Section 107 of the Code, I've directed the Canada Industrial Relations Board to order that all operations and duties at the ports resume and to assist the parties in settling their collective agreements by imposing final and binding arbitration.
So, here we go again. Now, it's interesting that you're seeing strike after strike after strike, and it shouldn't surprise anybody. And
Unfortunately.
Why shouldn't it surprise anybody? Is it because unions are evil? No.
Is it because employers are evil? No. Well,
That's up for debate.
not wholly.
But why are these strikes happening? These strikes are happening because it's time to negotiate what the increases are for people's paychecks. Because as part of collective bargaining, often, very often, your increases are pre-negotiated for every year up until the life of the agreement. So the issue, and where the employees have a legitimate gripe, a legitimate complaint, is that their increases did not keep up with the hyperinflation that actually happened under this Trudeau government.
Right, so employees' paychecks aren't purchasing as much as they used to, and that's because of the Liberal NDP government.
So you now have a scenario where all of these agreements are now coming due, and they're saying, well, hold on, we need to be given the appropriate adjusted amount so that we can actually have a wage that is going to help us pay for all of our bills. And I think most people can kind of understand that's a reasonable ask. There's other issues that, were in the CN Rail strike in terms of like safety, and there'll be other issues with the port strike. That's, those are separate to this, but one of the core issues is employee pay. And you're going to see that in all kinds of unions as they go through the collective bargaining process.
Canada Post is going through the exact same thing right now.
Yep. Absolutely.
I mean, because we rent a post office box from them, we got an email, and I've been getting emails for the past couple of weeks with updates on what to expect. So again, this is all happening right now because of the hyperinflation that we experienced under the Trudeau-Singh government.
So, what Mr. McKinnon says is his ability under Section 107 of the Canada Labour Code. I actually looked this up, and he recited it, so I actually don't even need to tell you. So he actually recited the portion of the Labour Code which actually gives him the power to ask the CIRB to essentially force these people back to work.
Well, and this is why they don't need to draft a bill. This is why they don't need to vote or do anything in the House. Number one, because the House is seized, but number two, because it's already legislated that McKinnon does have this power.
So, so it's interesting. Now, I want to take everybody back to the rail strike. You remember this?
What we said at the very beginning when we forced the Liberals to move forward on things like dental care, when I forced Justin Trudeau to move forward on pharmacare, we said, if you ever think that you could bring in back to work legislation and call it a confidence vote, we will vote against that every single time. We made it very clear. So they know we will not support any interference, not just back to work legislation, but any interference. If it comes to Parliament, we'll be voting against it. We should always negotiate. Particularly the message it sends is that it rewards bad behavior. It rewards an employer if they lock out their workers, if they mistreat their workers, they don't have proper safety, and they say, you know what, we know anyways we'll get the outcome we want because the government will just do it back to work or force arbitration. That's why we have to make a clear line in the sand. Never. We should always negotiate fairly, put pressure on getting a fairly negotiated solution, but never force the workers back. That undermines not just these workers, but in any future conflict, it'll send a message that employers can just disrespect their workers. That's wrong.
Okay, so that was during the rail strike. Like, we will never support this. We will never support it. We would vote non-confidence if they made this a confidence vote. Don't test me. Don't test me, Justin. Okay. And then after that, he tore up the agreement.
Right. So now he has absolutely no excuse not to call a non-confidence vote when the Liberals are back to their old tricks.
Well, and let's show a recent video. And now this was taken from Jagmeet's own Twitter account, and this was recorded Friday, November 8th.
My question to Pierre Poilievre, where you at, man? Where you at? There's a fight right now. Workers need someone to stand up for them. Where are you at? I don't see you. I don't see you. You know who your friends are when you're in a fight. When you're squaring up with someone and you look to your side and the guys run, they're not your friend. Right now you're in a fight. And look who's showing up. You Democrats will always be on your side when you're in a fight. We will always stand shoulder to shoulder with you. Whatever fight that you're fighting today is a fight for workers. It's for workers' power against the poor bosses. These poor bosses are making massive profits. As you've heard, they're making massive profits and they're ripping off the workers. What you're asking for is simple fairness. You're asking for basic respect. You're asking to make sure your jobs are there. Now, these guys are making enough money. These guys are making massive amounts of money. So let's send a clear message. This is about workers getting their rights. This is about workers getting their fair share. And we want to send a message directly to Justin Trudeau and the Liberals. Don't interfere with this process. Don't interfere. Don't get in the way. Don't get in the way. These bosses have shown again and again they're not operating in good faith. For the public, know that these workers were locked out. They're not even on strike. These workers got locked out. The big bosses' greed forced these workers out. If they want to make any vote in Parliament that in any way impacts your rights, we're going to vote no. We're going to vote no. We tell that right now. Whether that vote is a confidence vote or not, whether that triggers an election or not, I'm telling Justin Trudeau and the Liberals right now, you're never going to count on us if you're going to take away the rights of workers. Never. Never. Never going to happen.
Okay. So, you gotta love Jagmeet and his bluster because he knows damn well that's not going to come to Parliament.
Right, because you don't have to vote to require the parties to go to binding arbitration.
Right. The Minister of Labour just calls up the CIRB and says, hey, I'm exercising 107. Get them back to work. Now, this is the thing. So Jagmeet, he said He said, if they're going to force workers back to work, then they cannot count on us for non-confident or for confidence votes. He said that right at the end. Now, whether he kind of misspoke, it's not my fault. That's what he said. So this is the problem, Jagmeet. So the first time you said, we're not going to, tolerate the Liberals forcing people back to work. And then they ripped up the agreement. Now you've had the second time. And guess what Jagmeet said today? Nothing.
I think I smell a plot, though. If I'm Pierre Poilievre and I'm hearing this and he says, we're going to vote whether it's confidence or not, their next confidence motion, because you can make a confidence motion about anything. It doesn't have to be about budget. So I think the Conservatives' next confidence motion needs to be about workers' rights.
Labor disputes.
Yes.
Can you imagine that? Imagine the NDP voting against labor rights in a confidence vote. Folks.
It's diabolical, right? Like if I was the Conservatives, that is the motion I would table on my next opposition day. And I would make it a confidence motion.
Why not? Why not? Right? Because you then pigeonhole the NDP into that. And you dump in the scandals, dump in the labor rights. You're going to force them into a box. And if they still want to prop up this government, they're going to have to vote against labor rights. They're going to have to vote against holding the Liberals to account on all the scandals. And it would completely sell them out to literally their largest base of voters, which is the union workers. And then Pierre gets to steal his lunch. So it's actually a win-win for Pierre, because if Jagmeet votes confidence, then what are you going to hear from Pierre and the Conservatives, as well as the Bloc, right? They're just going to be ragging on Jagmeet, A, about his pension, and B, that, look, he's all bluster, he loves to do photo ops, but when it comes down to voting, he won't stand with you.
Right, he's talking tough, right? But he won't put his money where his mouth is. He won't actually stand up for you when there's a confidence motion.
He talks all tough against Justin Trudeau, but then he keeps them in power and votes against your labor rights. Yep. And then, so that's the one win. And then the other win is Jagmeet accepts that he's cornered. NDP has to vote non-confidence. And then we get an election. So the question is Karina Gold, are you ready to play ball? Are you going to put up or shut up? When are you going to schedule those next opposition days?
Well, even if she holds off until the last possible moment, the Conservatives have 3 days left. The NDP have 1. The Conservatives have 3. And I believe the week of December 9th is the last week, which means that there's really only a month until we see those confidence motions.
At the latest. At the latest. So stay tuned, folks, because this is going to get bumpy. You thought this video was done, didn't you? Well, you thought wrong. Many of you saw our kind of slight mystery post that we posted on X, on Facebook, and on our YouTube community page yesterday. And there's a reason for that. There's been much speculation about what it means. No, we are not being acquired.
Northern Perspective will stay Northern Perspective, but we are excited to announce that we will be doing a weekly show on True North with Harrison Faulkner. So
we're going to be guests on the Northern Dispatch show, and it's going to be a lot of fun. It's going to be really informative, where we're going to talk about the latest current events and social issues with Harrison, give our take on it. And it's going to be interesting because we're going to have some different perspectives, and we're not going to agree all the time, but it should make for some great conversation. So check it out. The first episode drops on this Thursday. So check it out on True North.